What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and I'm so excited to be talking XY today. Now, every single month, we look at Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield and how the top 20 cards from every single set with a booster box have performed month over month. And we do the same thing for not only the top 20 cards, but we do it for booster boxes as well. Now, I warehouse that same information for Scarlet and Violet and XY, but hey, guess what? I've got a life, I've got family, I've got a job, right? I don't always have the time to put it together. I always do Sun and Moon and I always do Sword and Shield, but for example, last month I didn't get the time to do XY, but after seeing how XY performed last month and then seeing how it performed again this month in the top 20 single space, I was like, I don't care if you have time, you got to make it happen. And I did, and I'm so glad that I did, because I think there's all kinds of awesome learnings in this video. Now, we have been talking for a while about how Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, obviously the Pokemon market's been in a little bit of a correction, and what happens when the market starts to correct is a lot of people look for value. A lot of people look a little bit further in the past, right? Like modern, ultra modern cards are getting, beat up a little bit here as of late. Sun and Moon is certainly getting their tail kicked right now. We're seeing a little bit of strength in some Sun and Moon or Sword and Shield pockets, but XY was really been flying under the radar as far as I'm concerned. I think the XY era, I think black and white, I think it is absolutely just a gold mine of opportunity. And one of the things that leads me to that conclusion is when you look at the total value here for the top 20 singles cards, even in the month of January, right? So the total value for the top 20 singles cards for all the sets that have booster boxes is $4,289. Now, when you compare that to, say, a Sword and Shield's right around $8,000, right? So XY is almost half of that for the same sample of cards. And then Sun and Moon is, I think, $12,000. So it's just absolutely crazy when you think about the value of these cards from sets that are extremely old, right? And probably had a much lower print run compared to the current ultra modern sets. Like, in my mind, they're just flying under the radar, and it is really exciting to see these prices start to move around. So, as I said, I do this every month. You see in October, the total value for these top 20 singles cards from all the sets with booster boxes was $4,417, right? That's all of them summed up. And then from October to November, that value changed. It went down $138 to $4,278. So it was down 3.1% from October to November. And then November to December, it was pretty darn close to flat, right? It was only down $30. And when you're talking about $4,200, like that is as close to flat as you're going to get. And then from December to January, it was up $41. Again, pretty close to flat, but at least it's up, right? And we're talking about trends. So when you look at the month over month trends for the last couple months, there's a lot of strength here, a lot of stability in XY. And remember, this is a whole view. Like, there are some individual sets that are absolutely on fire, and we're going to talk about them here in just a minute. Now, the booster box values can really jump, because there's not a lot of these booster boxes out there, and they're really expensive, so not a lot of them are exchanging hands a lot. But when they do change hands, like, they can move the price really far up or really far down, and we saw that from October to November. We saw a Phantom Forces box sell for a whole lot and really change the price of the overall value for the whole top 12. It was up almost $1,000, up 8%. But then November to December, it was down $111. And then December to January, again, it was down $100. So we're talking about pretty close to flat November to December and December to January. So now, with all that out of the way, we've seen how it's performing from a macro level. Let's start looking at the individual sets, and I'm so freaking excited to start off with XY Evolutions. Now, XY Evolutions, I know it's an expensive booster box. It's going for, $700, almost $800 in a lot of cases, but the singles cards have been on fire, right? So when you talk about last month, it was up 10%. This month, they're up 6%. Tons of green, lots of strength at the top. That is what we love to see. It's a nostalgic set. Like, I know XY Evolutions was printed into the ground, but it's got a lot of momentum. Like, a lot of people are falling in love with these cards. I think they're really undervalued. Like, that Chase Charizard card is only $53. That is absolutely insane, right? Then we got Steam Siege next to it. Not a lot of people like Steam Siege. I mean, it's probably one of the most unfavorable sets in the entire XY era. But even with that being said, the singles cards prices are up a little bit month over month, up 3%. And so we talk about value, we talk about people, looking for opportunity in a down market. So you might say Steam Siege, hey, listen, that's like 7 years old at this point. I don't care if they're, not the most popular cards in the world. A 7-year-old card in a near mint condition for a popular Pokemon that I can get for in the $30 range, like, that's a steal. There's only one card in there that's only over $35. Now, I also want to call out, you look at the booster box prices. So again, Steam Siege, not a popular set, yet still the booster boxes are going going for $325, usually a little bit over that. But then you look at the ETB prices as well. So you say, hey, listen, what's going on? Steam Siege booster boxes are at $325, but the Elite Trainer boxes are at $472. The XY era was a totally different era in the terms of Elite Trainer boxes. They weren't nearly as popular. They didn't print as many of them. Nobody was holding on to them. So you're going to see a lot of really crazy ETB prices as we continue to work through this list. So very next one's right here. You have Fates Collide and you have Breakpoint, and I'm telling you right now, you know how much I love Fates Collide. So it had been a rough couple months for both of these sets, but now we're starting to see some strength. Even though the Breakpoint cards are down just a little bit, it's in red, it's only down less than 1%, but it has been down 3, 4, 5% in the past, so Breakpoint's starting to normalize a little bit. Fates Collide is also doing really, really well, and that is one of my absolute favorite undervalued booster boxes right now, right? You've got some great cards in it. You have some really, really stunners in there. So the fact that that's going for $517, I think, is an absolute steal right now. Now, the only thing that I'm talking about too is I'm talking about undervalued cards, right? We're looking for opportunities in this market, and so far out of the first 4 sets, we've only seen one card, that Chase Charizard from XY Evolutions, that's over $50, right? And I don't know, is that a sign of things to come for these Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield cards? Is that a sign of weakness here in the XY era? I don't know what it means, but it is very, very fascinating that we're talking about 4 sets that are, you know, 7.5 years old, and only one card is only $50. Now, the next ones we're looking at right here, Breakthrough and Ancient Origins. So Ancient Origins finally brings us some high dollar cards, right? We got some Rayquazas in there that have performed really well, but even the Ray has been under a ton of pressure here as of late. And we start to look at the different things here, and we start to see that because Ancient Origins has a little bit of a stronger, a little bit of a more robust singles card pricing, right? We see $136, $68, $65, $60, so we're starting to see that in there. Then we start to see this average to booster box price ratio, which we use a lot in Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. It's been a really good indicator of the opportunity that a booster box has. Is typically when we see sets with a really high ratio there, the booster boxes tend to go up because the value of the singles cards in there are disproportionate to the price of the booster box. So it's been a really cool indicator for us. And Ancient Origins, even though the booster box is $1,000, is actually there at the very top. So it's interesting to see that. And it is interesting to see that these two right here are our very first ones that are actually going to be down month over month. Now, there's only 3 out of the whole 12 that are down month over month. Breakthrough is down, Ancient Origins are down, and we'll talk about some more in the future. But it is really, really interesting to see how these have trended. And what we have seen in the past in Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield is when the overall trend is up for all of the sets, the ones that are down one month tend to be up the next month. So it's going to be interesting to see if these two snap back when we do this next month and these flip from red to green. Now, the next one's right here. Roaring Skies is another one. I absolutely love Roaring Skies, right? We're back in the green for both of these top 20 singles cards being up month over month, like another Ray set in Roaring Skies, another booster box that's under $600 that I think is absolutely flying under the radar. And look at all these cards that are in the green, both in Roaring Skies and Primal Clash. So it is really, really cool. You know, then you look at Primal Clash, right? Like the big Chase card had a huge jump right there, up 25% month over month. So that could be an indicator of the market just saying, hey, listen, this card got way too cheap. We saw that when we were doing the Sword and Shield view, when we saw the Rainbow Charizard from Brilliant Stars, that had a huge, huge pop when it hit down in the $50 range. So I think that's what happened here in Primal Clash. Like, there really is some awesome art in this XY era. I know it tends to be a little underloved. I know a lot of these singles cards, you know, just aren't worth a ton of money, but I think there's some awesome art, and I think there's some huge, huge value here. So one of the next things we're going to talk about right here is Phantom Forces, and I love Phantom Forces. Not only does it have that epic Dialga secret card there at the very top, but it is a heavy, heavy Gengar set. You guys know how much I love Gengar, and sets that have Gengar in it tend to perform really, really well over time. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's just a random coincidence, but typically sets that are heavy in Gengar tend to do really, really well, and Phantom Forces is no exception, right? Like, the booster boxes are over $2,000. I know it shows that it's down 17%, but again, these booster boxes exchange hands very, very rarely, right? So when they do, it can move the needle really high or really low. Now, Furious Fist to me is simply a sealed play, right? Like, the booster box is up at $1,300. The ETB is over $1,000, which is just crazy. But there's not a whole lot there, right? Like, there's not a lot of oomph there when it comes to the singles card prices. And, you know, we're starting to get into the first 4 sets of this era. And we know that typically Pokemon doesn't bring out all the big guns in the first 4 sets. Usually year 1 is kind of laying the foundation for year 2 and year 3. We just got through that with Scarlet and Violet. And here we are going through these final sets here with XY era. Phantom Forces Forces is the exception to the rule, an absolute banger. And then you got Furious Fist. And then talking about the exception to the rule is Flashfire. I love Flashfire. Man, I wish I was around when Flashfire was out. It is a Zard heavy set. 5 of the top 6 cards are Charizard cards, and they've really been performing well. We went through a period about 6 months ago where a lot of Charizard cards were under pressure, and there's a decent number of them that are still under some pressure right now. But even though the number 2 card shows that it's down just a little bit over the last 3 months, it's been performing really well, and that Blue Chase Charizard card has just been absolutely on fire, up another 4% month over month, so that's really cool. And then again, as I said, XY base. Hey, listen, I mean, these top 20 singles cards are up. XY base doesn't have a lot of pop, but it does have Blastoise and Venusaur in it, and I mean, you can do a lot worse than that. I mean, talk about some epic Pokemon. I mean, it's a little bit better, to, as far as I'm concerned, than what we saw in the beginning of Scarlet and Violet. So anyways, listen, I think this is really cool information. I think it's fun to see how these have performed month over month from a total view, but then also from an individual set view. I think that the XY era and the black and white era are flying way under the radar. I think it's amazing that the total value of their top 20 cards is so disproportionate to Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Now, does that mean that this XY era is going to come up? Does that mean that the other 2 eras are going to come down? Does it mean it's going to be a combination of both and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle? I have no freaking clue because my crystal ball doesn't work, and maybe XY is just an unloved era and it will continue to be disproportionate. But this is why we do the data dives. This is why we do the work. And I hope you found this fun. I hope you found value in it. And if you did all of those things and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can possibly say. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one. See you, everybody.